Hi, I'm Steve Johnson. Welcome to Digital Works TV. Our guest today is Brian Fox from Omni Federal. So Brian, first, what does Omni Federal do?
Omni Federal is a startup business. We've been supporting the federal government since 2017, really helping drive digital transformation and digital modernization in the federal space. But we started in commercial, in the commercial realm, helping organizations like Macy's, Adidas, where you have to show results immediately and you have to show those results. So bringing that kind of focus on delivery and bringing delivery quickly to the federal space has been really appreciated.
I bet there's been some pushback though.
No, actually the organizations we're partnering with are looking for that. And it's actually part of my role there. We may get into that, but we're looking to find those folks that are looking to drive faster and get those things done that they need to get done from a digital modernization standpoint quickly.
So you told me your title is Director of Strategic Partnerships, and that sounds like you're the guy who deals with the top guy at whatever agency or whatever that you're trying to help with their digital move.
Yes, but actually right up and down that chain of command. Ideally, I'm connecting with a number of change agents within a government organization. That includes the technologists that are in the trenches trying to solve problems up against significant challenges. Procurement leads that are trying to support bringing in the right vendor. And then the technology leaders that are supporting all of that we're connecting with them and finding folks that are ready for a different and better outcome.
Okay, so we're interested in getting the aerospace defense world to move into using model-based systems engineering and using modelers to, because they can save money, but it also helps the process. It's all about, it doesn't necessarily make it faster, but it makes it, as a guy told me, it helps everybody be on the same page, even if it's a digital page. Okay, even though you're involved with the model-based systems engineering, MBSE a little bit, yours is really, well, do you tell me what when you say you're helping them move into the digital world, what does that mean? I would have thought, aren't they already in the digital world? Isn't everybody using computers, getting rid of paper? What are you helping them do?
Oh, look, it's a great question and a really good point. Yes, they're already there, but I think what most folks tend to witness and understand well, whether they're in government, in the military, or even the public working with government websites, is that there can be a fantastic difference between that digital experience when they're using something from a .com versus a .gov. And that, why is it while I'm putting in my travel voucher, for instance, that's so difficult, but if I was to just go to an airline, I can buy a ticket very quickly and swipe a credit card and do that very quickly. So what we're bringing with our commercial experience into that space is really a curiosity on what the user need is, because that is tied directly to the mission. So whoever our government partner is, we look at bringing user-centered, or what can also be called human-centered design, to ensure that the applications and systems that we're supporting with our government partners are going to meet the needs of the user, the warfighter in many cases. We also work in iterative processes that are always focused on...
I want you to say that for the layperson. What do you mean when you say iterative process?
Well, actually, that would be the layman term. Buzzwords can kick around like DevOps, DevSecOps, Agile. But it's really about...
So all that language that they say, the jargon that goes with any company.
The idea is, well, let's design a product, and we've talked to enough users to have an understanding of what minimally is required. We have a minimal idea. Let's get that out quickly in a couple weeks or maybe a couple months, get that into the user's hands, the warfighter's hands, and then collect feedback from them. How is that working for you and your stakeholders? And keep iterating forward. Versus the older method in government has been more waterfall, where, well, let's get a long list of requirements, let's talk about it for a long time, let's document tremendously, and then maybe in 5 years, in 10 years, there might be something. You know, it's interesting being here in Huntsville and on the drive here, Steve. I drove by the NASA Museum.
Yeah.
And
Space
for
and
folks
Rocket Center,
that are listening in, you know, the Space and Rocket Center has the Saturn V sitting there, right? And Von Braun and his team were very product focused. I think it's a wonderful example in government history, because you get to see all along that, all the rockets that led up to it. Everything was minimally viable, and they kept iterating forward.
Yeah, okay.
It wasn't, we're going to build the Saturn V. It was, they kept scaling to that as an end result eventually.
Okay.
After
in
years.
In that world,
Yep.
they were using, there's a slide rule on the wall behind you. They were using slide rules, and if you looked at old video, which looks almost ancient now, there would be a room full of draftsmen.
Yep.
So the government, you know, NASA, which would have been on the cutting edge, or the Army Ballistic Missile Agency, something like that, they would have been on cutting edge, and the digital world, you know, they probably didn't even think about that, what we might be. That would have been science fiction.
Yep.
So we have moved on from what they did to now. So you're busy trying to get your clients, the government agencies, the commands, whatever, to move into the most modern way of doing things. Is that?
That is right. And we're working in the ways that commercial industry just naturally works these days. As I described to many government partners, you know, if Mark Zuckerberg was to leave Meta, Facebook, and go start a new thing, or the folks at Microsoft, et cetera, all those big commercial entities that we know and use in the commercial space, those folks would be talking to users. They would be working in the cloud. They would be getting that product out there quickly to test their hypothesis. And they'd be putting in automation wherever possible, and that's what Omni is bringing with our federal partners to help enable the warfighter. And so what's very comfortable and just to the point of not even being exciting on the commercial side, we're driving change in the federal space, and that can be really exciting. And our job is to make sure our federal clients, our federal partners are comfortable with that. They understand why these methods that are very different in the federal space lead to better outcomes and are absolutely necessary to ensure that they can accomplish their missions.
Okay, so kind of a two-part question. One part, is there any pushback? And the other side is, are they doing this because they want to be faster? I mean, they want to get to the goal. I mean, that's one of the things where that has been a point of consternation for the military. Is we need a new missile system. We don't need it in 10 years. We need it in 5 years. Heck, we need it in 6 months if we can get it.
Or maybe in some cases we needed it yesterday. What can you give us, right?
So the reason you have a job is because they want to get faster. I don't know if cheaper is necessarily the right word, but they want to get faster. Am I correct?
Absolutely, and I think in many cases it is actually more cost effective as well. Because if you have a project going in a direction and it takes 10 years to deliver even the first product, there is no testing of that hypothesis. So what has all that investment gone to? No one knows until it's 10 years later and billions of dollars later, right? So the idea that we can get that product out there for them quicker definitely helps. And
is there pushback?
With our partners, no, because
the people in charge, but with the people
folks can, there definitely can be pushback. There can be folks that are uncomfortable with moving so fast, but it's that pushback. We can empathize with it. It's an important part of our corporate culture and the culture we try to bring into those spaces, because that pushback is coming from a good place. It's typically coming from, this is what's important to the folks that are pushing back. The mission is critical and things can't fail. They are concerned about project risk or product risk tied to that. And as such, they think if the process takes longer, that somehow de-risks everything.
We're not going too fast.
We're not going too fast. If we go too fast, something might break, and as opposed to the reality that we actually know. And DoD actually does this when it comes to warfighting. Is they will test things, tactics, techniques, and procedures in the field well before, going into that warfighting situation. And then as reality is happening in that warfighting situation, they're actually iterating all the time. Fragmentary orders are issued multiple times a day. The intelligence preparation of the battlefield process is iterative, where there's always an adjustment to reality, but at some point you have to execute. And the quicker you can execute, you can test those hypotheses, and then you start adjusting from that. So,
okay, the agencies that you've helped, is there a top piece of feedback you get where they say, "This is helping us so much"? Is there anything like that?
That is a good one. We often surprise them at how quickly we can start delivering.
Okay.
And not just the
When you
working.
say delivering, you mean giving them a process or?
No, giving them working software.
Okay.
As well as even some very specific roadmaps prior to that of like what that product's going to look like and how data is going to come together, as well as they can be surprised at how much we're engaging with the users and providing some clarity on what the requirements, the actual requirements for that software should be.
And I expect during your work there are a lot of questions.
Oh, absolutely.
And they're like, wait a minute, you just told us this. But what does that mean for that? Is it?
Yeah, but when you're focused in on the warfighter, on that actual user, there is no pushback that within that space, within the Department of Defense, that ultimately matters the most.
Okay, you've talked multiple times about the warfighter, and I know if you go on the Army Materiel Command today, you're leaving your telephone outside the building, or putting it in a little locker.
Yep.
So security is everything. So is there any nervousness on the part of somebody in a command where security is paramount to make sure the warfighter isn't compromised? How do you avoid problems with that when you're doing digital? And once upon a time at Redstone Arsenal, for instance, they had an office, and all these people did was look for attacks. By outside, but they've created in many cases an air gap. So you've got an interior, system, and you don't send email on that system. And there was one woman I dealt with was a cybersecurity officer at the Army Materiel Command. She didn't do social media, and I said, why? She says, makes me vulnerable. So I guess the long way to get to the question, how do you avoid in the digital world not having attack points or vulnerabilities?
I may pivot on that a little bit and talk about...
You're the expert, man, not me.
One of the bits of pushback that can come in the digital space throughout government, and this can be a point we help our federal partners on, is there can be risk aversion to the speed that we can bring, that commercial speed we can bring, because of cyber risk or IT security risk. And whoa, if you're going so fast, how are you ensuring that this DevOps pipeline in the cloud that can deliver code as it's created, very quickly? How are you going to ensure that application, that system, that infrastructure is secure? And throughout that process, we end up essentially consulting our federal partners that, no, actually speed keeps you safe. That the legacy methods in government that have been slow to deliver, all coming from a good place, actually increases cyber risk. And the analogy I often bring up is, I was an Army officer, so just a little bit of military history is, it's interesting that, when was it, 500-600 years ago, gunpowder was invented, and we kind of understand that brought the end to the castle, right? The idea that now you can start loading cannons, and this idea of a stronghold, a fixed point on the battlefield is no longer relevant, yet it was right up until the very beginning of World War II, the French were building the Maginot Line. And the idea of pouring concrete, placing block,
Yeah.
makes people feel emotionally safe. But as Rommel and Patton and others,
Go around it.
you can just drive around it. And to that point,
Yeah.
agility and velocity not only allows an army to meet its objective, but it also keeps it safe. And it's very counterintuitive, right? There was it during the Battle of the Bulge, Patton ran out of gas, right? As we were driving through Europe so fast. Logistics matters, probably more than pouring concrete for, you know. And the Russians have run into that in Ukraine, right?
You could not do logistics in the modern world without being digital.
Absolutely.
Because it used to be
going
paper,
back to digital,
they couldn't do all they have to do.
But going back to digital, you don't actually know what that risk is until the enemy does a thing in your digital space, and your ability to iterate quickly and react quickly and deliver that software and that update quickly, not unlike what happens on your cell phone, right, where you get that app update all the time.
Yeah.
That's what actually keeps an organization safe, the warfighter safe, and reduces cybersecurity risk. It's not about, whoa, let's slow this down and talk about it.
Yeah.
It's actually, how do we speed up and iterate rapidly?
So am I correct that cybersecurity is something that you guys probably think about a lot?
And support the government on.
And to make sure that whatever software you doesn't have a vulnerability.
Yeah,
so you have to think about that stuff before you give it to them.
Yep, absolutely. So we're supporting more software factories than any other large or small business in the defense space, in the Air Force, Army, and Space Force. And just by developing applications and supporting that infrastructure in a rapid way, that improves cybersecurity for everyone. But then we're also supporting offensive and defensive cyber operations in the DoD.
Yeah.
And we've got a number of cyber products that the government can literally almost grab right off the shelf and apply. So whether it's those digital or cyber services or those cyber products, we're supporting the government in a number of ways.
Okay. You said when we chatted that you were doing a little bit of model-based systems engineering work. Now you're getting into that. You know, that's one of the efforts for digital work. That's the whole idea, is to educate, to get high school students interested in being modelers, and to get the corporate world, the defense aerospace industry, to realize that moving into model-based systems engineering is where the action is. It's what you're doing in a slightly different way.
Oh, absolutely.
And I don't know, I wouldn't call it pushback, but it sometimes feels slow to make it happen, at least on the corporate end. What do you say? What do you think about that? Why would it be slow? Or what would you say, I guess, to the corporate guys about, you need to do this, and this is why?
I would actually have a response for the corporate folks as well as for the technology leaders in the federal space, especially within the DoD. On the corporate side, empathize with your potential partners and actual partners that you're teaming up with in the government to help them move forward. They're learning. I think MBSE is new for a lot of organizations, private or federal, helping them understand the value of it and iterating forward. Start small, don't boil the ocean with them, show them outcomes in small areas, and additionally, look for positive deviance where it might already be happening within a military command or a particular agency, and use that as an example and support the spread of that. Team up with others that are pushing on that. Model-based systems engineering and the software modernization activity that's been going on for about 25 years now. I think those are dovetail nicely, and that highlights why VETS LLC and Omni Federal have a joint venture to push forward on that, because it's very much related. And then when it comes to, on the federal side, the need for them to build that capacity, because they're starting to write it into contracts now. So on the federal side, you will bring MBSE, but they also do that, well, you will be agile. And so they might be putting in words that they don't quite understand what it means, beyond that high level or maybe mid-level understanding. And so there's an opportunity for MBSE experts like Omni Federal and Vets LLC with their joint venture to help build capacity and understanding of what that is and why it matters, and to help continue to spread the implementation of model-based system engineering.
We need to say that Vets LLC is a partner in Digital Works.
Yep.
You said a word then, I think that maybe that is the key word in our entire conversation. You said the word agile. And isn't, from what you do with federal agencies that you bring from the commercial world and MBSE, it is the agility to do what needs to be done as efficiently as possible. That's what digital's for, isn't it? Isn't the agility the main thing you're looking for?
Agility is a way to manage a digital product, but agility can be used even with hardware product design as well. It's just a method not unlike Lean or Toyota Production System as far as effectively managing a product.
Okay.
And
maybe it's not as important word as I thought it was.
No, it's actually extremely important.
But it just strikes me that in conversations with people like at Army Materiel Command, for instance, everything is about getting whatever it is where it needs to be as soon as possible.
Yep.
And that's why maybe among federal agencies and commands, they're really interested and have been interested in working in the digital world.
Yep.
And because you've got to do whatever it takes to get the job done, and this is the cutting edge of getting the job done.
Absolutely, but I would agree with you. Agility is critical for government. It's critical for the Department of Defense and any and all of the services. But what it really brings is a different method of management, right? Where I think some of the high-level philosophies are questioned, and it's all around uncertainty or certainty, in that ineffective project management in government, if you look at a project that has failed, it's typically that folks believe things were certain and well determined terrifically in advance. That all the requirements were listed, and so they will be able to deliver on a product 10 years from now, and that will still be relevant. Right, that's a legacy or a way that doesn't work. And it's actually not even fair to say that's legacy, because we were talking about von Braun and the rockets, right? That it iterated in a real way, and there was a lot of uncertainty of what is that thing going to look like in order to get the job done, getting the astronauts and all of their equipment to the moon, and they worked through it to deliver on that. And so when it comes to working software or MBSE, that's where Vets LLC and Omni bring that agile method, which is all about leaning into the uncertain of, we don't know what that final product will look like, but we'll talk to the user, we'll work with the stakeholders, and iterate forward to determine what that priority is and what is meeting the needs of the warfighter and the mission in order to get that job done. And by delivering working software very quickly, you can start meeting the mission need almost immediately and then just start building it out.
Okay.
Just like von Braun's rockets, right? They all worked. And they probably worked for different things.
Well,
not to get to the moon.
They did test a lot.
They did test a lot, right.
And some of the old guys told me they blew up a lot of things.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But they did get where they needed to go.
Amen. Yeah.
So where are we in this? So we've talked about what you're doing, and we've talked about MBSE and the work to get that. So it's not just initials, but it's how people do things. It's how it's done. So where are we? I mean, how are we just on the cusp of getting this all done, or do we have some work to do?
I think there's actually a lot to do when it comes to MBSE. I know, as I've met with federal technologists, they understand that it's important, but they don't know quite what it means for them in their program area. Acquisition specialists in government have asked, well, how do we buy it? How do we get it and make sure that what we get meets our needs? And so with that, I see terrific opportunity from my company at Omni Federal to help the government understand by delivering on that. Because I think seeing is believing, but not only is it believing, it's also understanding. By delivering a quality product, then they start to see what's possible.
Okay, and is it also a thing where we're here, and we're slowly growing, and eventually it'll be.
Absolutely.
We won't be talking about going digital. We'll be digital.
I think in many cases we already are. Like MBSE has an opportunity to, maybe not the best way to say it, but like make sense of much of the data that the government has already collected or has been delivered, let's say, on a particular product, like an aircraft, the data associated with its performance metrics and et cetera, making sense of that. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, Brian, thank you.
Steve, thank you for your time today. This has been wonderful. Yeah.
It's you know, it never occurred to me that the federal government wasn't already digital.
It is.
Entirely.
It
entirely,
is.
But you can call some different agencies and realize that, well, maybe they are, but they're kind of not, because there's, you know. But by the way, I didn't ask you this, but I want to just make sure we include this. Is AI changing that world too? The world you're involved in, and the world is that and if it is, it's got to be a growing influence, just because AI is growing.
Absolutely. And from Omni's perspective, and just from, I guess, my experience in the federal space, especially when it came to software modernization, it's really just the opportunity for automation, and for those federal agencies, those federal activities, those military activities, to understand the opportunity to leverage automation to make software more secure, to free people up to do higher order work, right? I maybe a silly analogy, but I think about this. I've got one of those little Roomba robots, and it's a great. It doesn't do all of my house cleaning, but it does a little bit, right? And a lot of automation is like that, where it's not going to replace everything. It allows us to do a better job elsewhere, because there's so much to do. And
it also speeds things up.
It speeds things up, right?
You don't have to do that corner of the living room. It's
so like when Omni implements automation on our DevSecOps pipelines, it's making it automated testing. You were talking about Von Braun and team testing, right? Testing that software, making sure it's going to work for folks. Automation to ensure that the user experience is high quality. And then also just around IT security and cybersecurity. And so when it comes to AI now has the opportunity to help better analyze and collect data, creating dashboards for folks, and we're seeing that with some of our federal partners. The opportunity to speed up acquisition processes, right? Make those so that that is part of that delivery, acquisition. If it takes 5 years, Omni might be able to deliver the software in 5 minutes, you know, to one of our federal partners. But if the acquisition takes 5 years, now you're talking about 5 years and 5 minutes. And so the opportunity there to speed that up, both on the industry side as well as on the government side. So AI and automation in general, there's a lot of opportunities still.
Okay, and maybe I needed, to the word agile, we need to add time.
Well, agile is all a part of that, making the most of time.
Because time is not on our side. And
it can be, and automation allows that then to become a weapon, right? If you can, in that OODA loop, right, that observe, decide, act, and you know, reorient, that if you can tighten that loop.
Okay, so if you go quicker than the other guy, is what you want to do.
Then you win, right?
All right. All right, Brian Fox, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being here. And thank you for joining us on Digital Works TV. It does work.